Hi everyone. Again, I am Mike Seblani and I will walk you through dataset linking. I prepared an agenda for this to talk about everything about dataset linking and merging as well. Okay, so quickly through the agenda, I will walk through the difference between merge versus dataset linking. This is a question that comes up quite a bit for us, so we'll hopefully after this session you'll have a pretty good understanding on when to use which. And as a result, we prepared some merge scenarios, some dataset linking scenarios, and finally some demo to show you both of them. Okay, so what I've done is I started, I thought it would be a good idea to kind of just show you kind of side by side what merge is versus dataset linking at a high level. So there is really a lot of overlap. You are combining datasets together to create visualizations on top of them and create stories on top of them in Lumira. But there is some key differences that you need to be aware of. From a functional perspective, the merge requires a unique key, and in the case of a dataset link, you just need a common dimension in order to do the linking. So this is kind of at a technical level, but really what you are doing is, in the case of merge, you're extending the dataset, and in the case of dataset linking or blending, you may hear me referring to dataset linking as blending as well. It's really the same concept. You're really correlating the datasets together. And again, I'll get into the detail of what that means. What do I mean by extend versus correlate? And hopefully the scenarios that follows will walk you through that. But I guess at a high level, there are really several facets that you need to consider, whether to merge or whether to link. And this really all depends on your data and on the question that you're trying to answer with your data. If your data is structured enough and does include unique keys that are relevant across the data sets that you're linking, you always want to try to merge first. And you'll see the benefits and how much simpler actually it is if your data sets are merged together. Mainly because when you merge the data sets together, they become one data set. So basically you're extending your fact table, your data set from being the content of what the source was to the output of the multi-data sets that you're including together. Also, in the case when you want to append content to your data set, you also want to merge, because appending meaning you're really adding records to your data set, and that's where merge is valuable for that as well. Maybe another scenario for merge is that if you are enriching your data, so you want to create custom hierarchies, you want to create calculated columns that where you're controlling the sequence of how these calculations are happening. So you're basically doing really kind of similar to transforms. There are sequence of, you want to go through the different calculations in a certain order. You want to merge to control that as well, because in the case of merge, you're really doing a lot of calculations that are happening before the aggregation takes place in the visualization. So all of these things that I just mentioned are really kind of very relevant for the merge. Whereas in the dataset linking, that also has its value and it's very powerful, and there is overlap over some of those things that I've talked about in the case of merge. But really, because in the case of dataset link, because you are doing your calculations, your any kind of manipulations are happening post-aggregation, and on the result set of the visualization, you could be limited on what you can and cannot do. So maybe very high level to kind of sum it up. Merge is really good in the cases where you're still doing enrichment, and you want to enrich after you have blended or after you have merged or mashed up the data sets together. It's suited for that. It's suited for the pre-aggregation type of calculations, and also calculations such as out-of-context calculations or kind of exception aggregations for those of you who come from the BW world. Those kind of concepts tend to be a lot better suited for the merge scenarios, whereas in the dataset linking cases, this is really good when you don't have a unique key that you can link on, and you just want to really kind of correlate the measure values that are coming from these different facts or from these different data sets side by side in the same viz, in the same chart. And although you can still create calculations on top of that, the key here is that the calculations that you're creating are really at the result set level and not at the fact level. So they're really not at the record level, but more at the post-aggregation, at the content that are after you had done a group by in the chart. So hopefully, again, the examples that I'm going to show you will try to make that clearer. And one last thing also to kind of highlight is there are some pitfalls to blending and dataset linking in general, and this is really kind of the complexity that end users or the content creator may run into once you have linked on a specific dimension, but the level of aggregation that you need for your chart context is not exactly what you have in the chart. And then again, this is harder to say, and it's probably much easier to get into with an example. So hopefully this concept will become a little bit clearer as we go through the examples. Okay, so with that, I'm going to jump straight into the merge scenarios. I have a couple of slides to talk about that. So I prepared some very simple data sets to explain the concept. So assuming that we have dataset 1 and dataset 2 here that have region, employee, and sales for dataset 1 and region, employee, profit for the secondary dataset. If you merge these together, you'll end up with basically your first dataset is extended horizontally in this case, and now we're just adding the profit to it. And for the consumers of this data set, once you are in the viz room and you're creating charts on top of this, you really don't have to worry about how these things are linked from that point on. It's basically really for end users, it appears and looks and feels as if it's the same data set. The same would go as well is that if you had, if you were to append additional data to these data sets, you basically would be extending the records vertically. So this is what I mean by merge is really extends the fact table or extends the data set horizontally or vertically. And you need a unique key to enable to do that, for you to be able to do that. In Lumira today, in case you have data sets that have something like this kind of records where you have, the employee John is repeating for the region Europe, Lumira will block you from joining these things together or mashing these things together in the prepare room. And that's mainly because you don't have a unique key, and we need that unique key to resolve that. And when you run into those kind of scenarios, that's where dataset linking becomes valuable, and that's where you can kind of use it to kind of get past that limitation. Okay, so we'll get over to the dataset linking. I've prepared also a couple of scenarios in here. We have a dataset called population and another one called income dataset, and the common dimension between those is the state. Although there are different levels of granularity between the population versus the income. If I am to visualize the income and the population per state, no problem. We can do that even though the state is repeating. The dataset link and the viz will allow you to create this kind of visualization, and you're good to go. However, with dataset linking, you can run into issues when the level of granularity is different between what you are linking on and what you are visualizing in the chart. So I prepared a second slide here that shows you this example. So you'll notice here in the viz output, we are trying to look at city, and we are linking on state. So because the San Jose and Los Angeles both are part of California, and because we don't have the income level for both of these cities, the product really doesn't know how to resolve that level of granularity, and therefore the income number does repeat for San Jose and Los Angeles. And those kind of scenarios could be misleading, and the user would need to kind of figure out a way to resolve those. So there are some tips and tricks that we do within Lumira to help you, A, identify that you are running into that kind of scenario, and then B, what can you do to get out of that kind of scenario? Okay, so that's really very high level, the difference between merge and what we have for dataset linking in Lumira. So what I wanted to also do is going to give you a breakdown on dataset linking and all of its different capabilities per version that was released. So in 127 is when we introduced dataset linking. You were able to link two datasets together. We allowed you to visualize both the measures and the dimensions that are coming from the secondary dataset. And we also we were also rolling up or showing you a count of the members that are coming from the secondary dataset that are not linked together, or the level of granularity for them was not determined. So we were giving you visual cues to let you know that these are matching members, but we don't know how to break them up to give you the detail of them. So kind of in that example of when we were showing city, instead of showing you Los Angeles and the other city, which I can't remember, which is Los Angeles and let's say San Diego, what we had done, we were showing you two members, and just so that we don't duplicate the number income, but you still had the choice to break those apart. I'll show you an example of that also. In 128, we allowed you to go beyond just the left outer join, and now you're able to change the join type to full outer, inner join, or an exception join. And also you're able now to join more than two data sets together, so you can go 3, 4, 5 for as much as you want. But as you can see, as you will see, is that it will get quite complex if you are trying to do those kind of links at that kind of level, at so many more than 2, 3 data sets in the viz. As well, in 128, you were also able to do linking between HANA, analytic views and calculated views that are coming from HANA online connections within Lumira. In 129, we've focused a little bit more on the user experience. So now we've given you some functionality to help you figure out how to link the data sets together. So we've given you some suggestions on the common dimensions that you can possibly link on. We also show you, we allow you to browse through some of the sample values at the linking dialog so that you can tell, which dimensions are possibly similar to which. And we also introduced this concept of active link dimensions. And what the purpose of this feature is to remove the limitation from having to force you to add every link dimension into your visualization. So before 129, if you had linked on the dimension California, then you had to have that California dimension or the region dimension in your viz. It had to be shown in your chart or in your bar chart. With the active link dimension, you can control that. So you can say that the level of aggregation is a dimension region, but I actually want to show city, or I want to show product, or I want to show whatever other dimension I want to. And as a result of that, we also introduced a second feature, that's the third feature in 129 listed there, is the rollup operation. So as soon as you display a dimension, or as soon as you're grouping on a dimension that's different than the dimension that you're doing the aggregation on, then Lumira starts to roll up and do a secondary aggregation level on the values that you're displaying. And so, and as a result, we've introduced a feature to allow you to manipulate how that secondary aggregation takes place. As well, when we detect duplicate values, we provide you warning to let the user know that, hey, look, these numbers are duplicated here because of the rollup operation or because of the level of granularity that you had set up in your link. Please do something about it. So you'll see some warnings in the product that shows you that. And something that's actually very useful and very powerful is that now we allow you to create expressions in Lumira 129, custom expressions that are based on all of the data sets that have been linked together in one viz. So let's say you have 3 different data sets and you have dimensions and measures that are being brought in from all of these data sets. You can create an expression that combines all of these things together to give you one number that you can work with. I'll show you a quick example of that just so that you can see how useful and how powerful that is. And for the number 6, filter on union list of values. So in the case where you have a full outer join between two data sets or more, when you go to filter on the members from that common dimension that you have a full outer link on, you see one union list of values. So you don't have to kind of go and select it from multiple data sets to get your selections correctly. You should see one list and you can filter from that list. Okay, so to start, maybe I just wanted to very quickly get you familiar with the data sets that I'm using, just so that you can kind of grasp the results that we're seeing. So for the merge scenarios, I prepared a couple of very simple data sets similar to what I had shown in the PowerPoint slide. We have region, employee, and sales. And for the second data set, I also have region, employees, and profit, and I want to merge these things together. So, and also, before we do that, I have also 3 data sets. The first data set has region, product, year, and sales. Second data set is showing year, quarter, and global sales. So we have year as a common dimension that we can link on. We're going to try to work with that. And for the third data set, I have an order date which I had enriched to break it up into year, quarter, month, which now gives me a dimension that I can link on that's common with my first data set. And I also have product, retailer, and an account of the orders that are coming from these retailers and products. Okay, so really very straightforward, very simple to highlight the scenarios that I want to show. So I'm going to switch back to the merge data set 1, and quickly I want to try to merge this with a secondary data set. So if I choose from the drop down here the data set that I want to merge with and hit the suggest button, we get back one match that employee has a 50% match between those. So I'm going to hit the merge button here. And what you will see is that the merge data set or that data set that we started with is now extended. And we have profit that's been added in here. And now as a result of that, I did a left outer join. So basically we're seeing that secondary region that's coming in from the second data set. And now that I have this, really very easy. I mean, this for you who've used Lumira for a while now, really nothing special here. I can look at my regions by employee. I can look at the profit and the sales side by side. Here we go, we have a visualization. I can filter on that. It's really, for all intents and purposes, this is now one data set. So the end user doesn't really have to worry about linking or any of that. You know, once you've prepared that for them ahead of time and you went and created the content, they can go and analyze this data and continue working with it fairly straightforward, right? So the key here is that really, as a result of that merge, now that first data set, merge data set 1, contains the content of the original data set. Okay, so that's really basically merge in a nutshell. I'm going to create a new data set now, a new visualization, and now I'm going to switch over to data set 1. In fact, actually, before I do that, I'm going to go back to the prepare room and show you that I'm limited to merge in this scenario in here. So if I go to data set 1 and I want to merge this with data set 2, because I want to look at the sales and the global sales side by side in one visualization. So I want to try to link these things together. If I hit the suggest button, even though I have year as a common dimension, I'm unallowed to I'm not allowed to link these things together as a merge, and that's really mainly because the year is a repeating. There are repeating values, and it's not unique. So the merge scenario is really limited in this scenario here. So dataset linking allows me to get past that limitation. So in here, I can look at the year. I can look at the sales from dataset 1. And now, in order for me to analyze my sales against my global sales, I can switch to the secondary data set and then just simply drop the global sales here in the x-axis. So I'll just double-click on it. And as soon as I do that, the tool tells you that you need to link these things together. So you are prompted to do that link. And now, what we've introduced on 129 is that if you basically hover over these, then the data engine is retrieving for you a bunch of values, so that you can kind of tell just from the type of values whether these are things that are common that can be linked together. Also, if you click on one of these dimensions, automatically there is a light bulb that shows up in here that suggests for you the common dimensions that you could use. And in this case here, it suggested that year has a 100% match. So I'm going to go ahead and select it and click OK. Now, once that's done, I should see my global sales side by side with sales. So now we were able to do the dataset linking even though there is no unique key for us. So this is kind of basically the functionality that came in 127, and now you could do that, those kind of scenarios without an issue. Now, what we've done as well is that so I'm going to switch quickly to a cross tab. So far so good. In fact, there is here something called Datasets in use. If you click the drop down in here, it gives you a quick summary on what you are linking on and what are these datasets that are used in this bit. So this is really kind of a good summary for you to always know what's happening behind the scenes and how come I'm seeing the numbers that I'm seeing here in this viz. In this case here, we're using a left outer. I could change this to inner, full outer, etc. I can do that. Also, I can add a secondary dimension from that second data set that we've added. So I can do that by, again, double-clicking in here, or I thought this list is useful for you to be familiar with. If you click the plus sign in here, you can see a list of all of the data sets that are linked and all the dimensions that you can use from these data sets side by side in here. So from dataset 1, dataset 2, I'm going to grab in the quarter, and I'll get a breakdown of by quarter the sales and the global sales. So when we click that, now very quickly you notice that instead of giving me the 4 quarters, Lumira tells you that there are 4 members here that have a value of 170 and 900 versus 200 and 1600. And the reason why Lumira is doing this is because we don't know how to break up the sales by the 4 quarters. That's because you had linked at the year level. So the level of granularity or the level of aggregation is happening at the year level and not at the quarterly level. And therefore, we return this kind of result. Now we can still allow you to look at what those values are. So if you click on this cog menu here within the settings cog, within the viz, and click on the show multiple matching members, you will see now that we will give you the different quarters per year, and you do see a breakdown of the global sales per quarter, but now the sales values are duplicated for each quarter, and that's again driven by the link that you have in here. So this is kind of that active link dimension that I talked about earlier, and how Lumira tries to help you to not get you in a state where you are getting duplicated numbers, but when you do that, it gives you some visual cues that you are running into this scenario. Another visual cue that is given in here is that there is a warning that's shown right by sales in here. So if I hover over this warning, you will see that it says that there are duplicate values for this measure, and add more linked dimensions to provide more context to your visualization. Or basically, you have to deal with the scenario, with the fact that the sales value now are duplicated. Because I cannot link at the quarterly level, I don't have that in my dataset 1. The best thing that I can do in this viz is just really remove the quarter and look at the details at the yearly level, and that would be the most accurate thing to do for this particular visualization. Okay, so that covers the active link dimension, some of the warnings that we show you, some of these multi-matching members that multi-matching numbers from the secondary data set that I showed you in the list of available features that came in 128. What I want to do next is that I said that we can also link on more than 2 data sets. So if I switch to my third data set and I decide to show the number of orders also side by side by my sales and global sales, again I am being prompted to link these things together. Now the one thing to keep an eye on in here is that we are automatically prompted to link with dataset 1. This is the reason why is because when we started this visualization, we started with dataset 1. And what that means then is that the context of this visualization is really driven by dataset 1. So although we are linking 2, 3, 4 datasets to it, the links are always linked to your dataset 1. So really dataset 1 is your fact table, and you are correlating other dimensions and measures with that fact table. So if you think of it from linking tables together, the dataset 1 in this case here is your left table. So we're always going to show you everything from the left table, and in the case of a left outer, you're going to see only what's equal to it from the secondary dataset or the third dataset, and etc. And it's always driven by which dataset you started the visualization with. So although I'm linking now dataset 1 to dataset 3, so just very quickly, I'm going to link them on year. We do also have product in here that is also common between both. Let's just look at the suggestion. And yeah, there is a 67% chance, so I'm going to link on that as well. But again, the key thing in here is dataset 1 is really what we call it in Lumira, we call it the primary dataset. And so therefore, all the links are driven by that primary dataset, and we show you a specific icon for it that looks like this. This is denoting that it's a primary dataset, and any dimension or measure that's coming from the primary dataset also have that same icon. So you see year and sales are coming from that primary dataset, and everything else is secondary. This really is very, very important to understand as a concept in the product, because for you to understand the numbers that you're seeing, the primary dataset is really a key here. And the primary dataset is not because we started linking from dataset 1, it's because this visualization started with dataset 1. So the links that we've established, we established them once per story, and now in every visualization you can consume them, or you can consume a subset of those links based on what you need for your visualization. So in this particular case, I have dataset 1, 2, and 3 are shown in this viz, and I have a left outer join between dataset 2 and dataset 1 and dataset 3 and dataset 1. What I want to do is for dataset 3, I'm linking on year and product, but I want to change this to be a full outer join, so I can change that here. And now, as a result of that, we are looking after all of the years and the products across dataset 1 and dataset 3, and we're seeing the number of orders that are for those. We see that we do have a warning here for global sales, and that's really because global sales, it's warning us there may be potentially a duplicate numbers in here, and that's again maybe because of the level of granularity that we are looking at the year level. So we can look into that in a little bit more detail in a moment here. Now, what I would like to do as well is include some additional details in here. So what I want to do is I want to get a breakdown by product and by retailer. So to do that, I know that detail is in my third data set. So you notice that I keep switching between data sets in here, but you really don't have to. I mean, I could have just simply gone in here, and I can see the list of all of the dimensions that I can use. I can select product, also select retailer, and now I should get a breakdown by these three. So now I should be able to group by year, product, and retailer. And now you can see the breakdown that we're seeing now per year, product and retailer. And you'll notice here, like under global sales, the number is repeating, and that's really mainly because we don't know what are the global sales per retailer and per product, because those dimensions don't exist in the global sales. We also see that even for the sales figures from our primary data set, we don't have a breakdown for in 2014 how the numbers break up between shop 2, 4, and 5. So there is also duplicate numbers in here. So now these numbers, you have to really be very careful how you use them in an expression or a calculation, because you want to avoid dealing with the fact that they are duplicated in here. But the reason why this is really quite useful is you can really now create calculations where it is relevant. So for my case in here, I'm displaying year, product, and retailer. I'm showing sales, global sales, and the number of orders. Let's say I want to do a running count on the number of orders and reset them at the year level. So what I want to do is, you see how we have a number of orders per year. I could go to the calculator here and then say, give me a running calculation that looks at the number of orders, and I want those numbers of orders to be broken down, or I want to get a count, a running count on the number of orders, and I also want that to be reset at the year level. So reset at the year level, for those of you who are familiar with SQL, this is really, you're really partitioning at the year level. And when you're creating an expression in Lumira as well, like if you're creating a scripted expression, we use the for operator to denote the reset option in here. So just for you to be aware of, okay? So I'm doing a running count on number of orders per year. Click OK, and that number should show up now side by side here with the number of orders. Okay, so here's my running count. It's going to count each number of orders per year, and at every year, it's going to reset. So here, let's just show the years. So we see for year 2013, we go up to 7. Year 2014, we go up to 6. Okay, so far so good. This is really straightforward. What you could also do is create a custom expression. I'm going to call this one Demo 1. Now, what we could do in here is that I want to say, let's see, I want to look for if the running count is greater than 3, then maybe I should have used a number that's a little bit bigger, because I know, let's just go with 6 maybe. Then good, else, bad, just something very simple. Validate, that should do it. Okay, so you see that it's basically, it's evaluating based on the running count and returning for us a value. Now, obviously this is getting very busy. You don't need to have all of these in your chart. So I can in fact remove all of these and show only that custom expression that I just created. Okay, and now I'm evaluating based on that running count that's happening across data sets, whether whether it's good or bad. So you can create these kind of things through the expression, through the custom expressions that we've introduced in 129. Another scenario that I wanted to show you as well was, what happens when you, so right now we're linking on product and year. So I think to do that, what I have to do is first, for the measure, maybe show you another measure in here. So we'll go to the number of orders and maybe go back to sales. remove demo. Okay, so we're showing year, product, and retailer, and again you see that warning that sales cannot be broken down, and it's getting a duplicate value. Now if I remove product from my active link dimensions, and now I'm saying only link on year between those two data sets, then what you will see in here as well is that if what you are linking on is not to the same level that you have in your viz. So actually, you know, I realize now I should be linking on product and product not in here. Here we go. Okay. Okay. So I'm linking on year and product between dataset 1 and dataset 3 to show those two numbers, but I'm not showing the product in the chart. So this is the example where your active link dimension is different from what you are grouping by. So as a result of that, because the level of granularity is lower than year, so you know you're linking on year and product, but you're only showing year. We roll up the number of orders and sales, and we show you this icon, that shows that there is a roll up now happening on these two measures, and you can change how that roll up takes place. So you'll notice that there is now a drop down that's added in here called calculate total add. By default, it is using the same aggregation level that is being used in the measure itself. So if I go to dataset 3 and look at what is the number of orders, the number of orders by default is doing a sum. So that's the kind of the aggregation that's set at the data set itself. But there is an additional aggregation that's happening in the viz as well. So this is an aggregation that's happening at the result set, and you can manipulate that aggregation. So by clicking this cog menu and going to the calculate total as, you can change that from being a sum, an average, account, or a min or max. So if I do a count, basically it's going to count the number of products that are within that year, essentially, because the aggregation is at the product level. So I can change that to be an average or a mix max min or sum. But really the point to highlight in here is that secondary level of roll-up that we're doing in order for us to show you these values can be controlled in here, and this option is only shown when you are linking on a dimension that's not used in the viz. So as soon as I add product back in here, then now all of a sudden you'll notice that we don't show you that icon anymore, and that's because we're not doing a roll-up anymore. We are really utilizing the same aggregation that's used at the dataset level. Only when I remove product from my group by statement or from my viz is when you will get that message, and you get an additional option in the cog menu to deal with it.
Is it possible to link dataset 1 to dataset 2 and then dataset 2 to dataset 3?
It depends. So in the scenario that I have in here, where you have datasets 1, 2, and 3 are all linked together in one viz, no, you cannot do that. They're always linked to the main dataset. However, if you wanted to create a second viz that's only dataset 2 and dataset 3, then the links in dataset 1 become irrelevant. So very quickly, very quick for me to show you that scenario. So if I switch to dataset 2 here and look at year global sales, I can very easily switch over to dataset 3 and then add the number of orders. And you see how we're prompted to link again, because now this link between dataset 2 and dataset 3 is completely different from what we had done in the original viz. Okay, And now, if you look at your context in here, you're linking only on year between dataset 2 and dataset 3. So in this case here, we were able to control that specifically for this viz. But switching back to my the viz where I was in this case here, you cannot just say that only link dataset to the dataset 3, because the primary dataset for us here is really dataset 1, and that's what drives the link.
There was a question from Carla. When you were showing the crosstab and the various linking options, was a question of how can I highlight the running total. Specifically, Carla wanted to highlight the very last running total, I guess a grand total. I mean, we can use conditional formatting, I know, to highlight individual columns or rows or cells. Do you have a thought on maybe anything further on how to highlight a particular running total?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, Adrian, you can use conditional highlighting or conditional formatting. You can create even expressions that can generate a specific number for you, so that the running calculations that, although I showed it through the UI how you could do a running, you could do that through a custom expression as well, and have that number shown by itself, or being used in another calculation. So there are really multiple ways that depending on what you really need for and how you want to display that running. There are different options in Lumira.
Does Lumira have functions to create running sums as calculated measures independent of the chart or crosstab?
So yes, you can create running totals directly in the viz room, in fact. However, right now these running sums that you're creating are really bound to the visualization. So although you don't have to show them in the viz, we do manage them for you within the viz. So when you go to the viz, you can see every calculation that's been created from before. So like in my example in here, remember I created that running sum and that custom expression. Even though they're not in this measure in here, if I go in here, you'll actually see them. They're still available for you. That's the demo one that I created on that running count, and you can add them to the visualization at any point. Just the only key thing here is that they're not really bound to the data set. They're really bound to the visualization right now for the time being, as of 129. And I know that in the roadmap, this is something that we're going to make, kind of open them up so that you can bind them to the data set, so that you can use them in other visualizations. But for the time being, if you can work around that by creating all of your calculations within the viz, and then basically copy the viz into a new one from the drop down in here. You can just duplicate the viz, and now you can change that duplicated viz to have different content shown in it. But the key though is that that new viz that we just created still continues to have those running or whatever calculations you may have created before. So that's one way of working around it.